All right, guys, we just had our debate on Manziel versus Vince Young. I obviously won. It wasn't even close. I felt the arguments on the other side were elementary at best, essentially giving Vince Young credit for being on a better team, and essentially because UT won more, Vince Young is better. Makes no sense. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I'm 4-0 in debates now. I'm still undefeated, no matter what the poll says. We all know it. But anyways, back to the topic I wanted to talk about, and that is the Mavericks got Grant Williams. He was a guy I wanted to hopefully get, and a few things happened around this that I kind of wanted to talk about, and that is one, value. As you can see here, we're paying him 4 years, $54 million, about, let's just call it $13.5 million a year, $13 a year. I think that's great value when you think about the fact that we had $16 million sitting on Davis Bertans on the bench. This guy's actually going to be playing significant minutes and brings a lot more on the defensive end. I think this is great value, and that's really the main point of this video, and the main title is value. One of my big frustrations with the Mavs the last few years has been their contract situation and how they've constructed a roster, how much they've been paying guys. And not only am I happy with us getting Grant Williams, but in terms of value and how much we're paying him, but we moved Reggie Bullock, which, I probably defended Reggie Bullock a little more than most people last year. He had a horrible shooting year last year, which I can't defend. But, again, I think he's a great glue guy. If he can hit some open threes, he can definitely contribute. So I'm a little sad to see him go, but Grant's definitely a better player. So there's that. I think that's important to keep in mind. And the value that we're getting him for is incredible, right? To think that for the next 3 to 4 years, we have a good group of guys that we are paying good money in terms of, like, the amount of money is good. It's not overpaying. I don't think we're overpaying anyone right now. Another part of the value is Dwight Powell. He's signed with us for about $4 million a year. I think that has gone unnoticed or not talked about enough. That's another great value. A big man. I know he's on the smaller end of big men, but he is a big man nonetheless. A great versatility, can play center or forward, can can start here or there if need be. I think apparently Houston was looking at him and we're going to offer him a lot more money. He turned it down. I think the fact he stayed with us speaks volumes. I think he needs a lot of credit for that. Apparently he turned down millions more to go play for the Rockets. I mean, the Rockets are only 4 hours away, so it's not like it would have been a huge lifestyle change per se geographically, right? I mean, then again, the Mavericks are a better team than the Rockets right now on paper, at least in the last few years as well. So there's that. But him taking, I think it was $4 million a year. Kudos to him. You love to see it, especially with the other guys coming in. I think he can be a good mentor. I think he's a smart player. From everything I've heard about him, guys say his IQ is off the charts, which you would like to see that maybe translate more into production on the floor sometimes, but it is what it is. And then also, we were looking at Matisse Thybulle, however you say it. Sorry if I butchered it. We were looking at Matisse Thybulle, and again, I think another good value move, right, to let him go. Again, you look at how much we're paying. Let's just look at how much we paid Grant Williams, Davis Bertans, and what we would have paid Matisse Thybulle, right? Matisse Thybulle essentially was $11 million a year for 3 years, and he's not a very good offensive guy. He's not even really that good of a shooter. He's a bit more, I think, of the slasher type, if I had to describe him a little bit, but he's not necessarily good enough to put the ball on the floor. He's athletic, he can move well, but offensively he's lacking big time. Grant Williams is a good to really good to great three-point shooter. I think he's going to feast at times with Luka and Kyrie. I think he's going to, he'll have plenty of games scoring 20-plus points, in my opinion. I don't think it's crazy for him to average 15 points a game. If he's hitting his shots at a 40% clip, his threes at a 40% clip like he has been the last few years. Again, I think his best average points per game were 8 or 9 points per game. So me saying he could average 15 is a lot. That's a big step. I think he can do it. I think he'll have some 20-point games here and there. But to think he can't average at least double digits for us, I think is definitely possible. I give that about a 50-50 shot, I would say. But back to Matisse Thybulle, right? We were going to pay him $11 million a year. We're paying Grant Williams, let's call it $14.5 million a year, and we were paying Davis Bertans $16-17 million a year. I think passing up on Thybulle, if the Blazers would not have matched our offer, I honestly wouldn't have wanted Matisse Thybulle after we got Grant Williams. I think they're kind of the same player in a lot of ways, except that Grant Williams is a much better shooter. He brings a lot more to the table offensively. I think mentally he's a lot tougher than Thybulle, I would say. Not to say that, Thybulle's another kind of defensive-minded guy, oriented guy. And while he's probably a little better defensively, I think Grant Williams is better a lot better on the offensive end. So, I'm happy with what we did. And I think, in terms of the value, right, not signing Thybulle, I think allows us to possibly still do some things. Well, I think one more guy is still within possibility. I don't know if P.J. Washington is possible. I think that's kind of on the upper echelon of hopes to think that we could get him. Again, I think Allen would still be nice to get. I think we're still looking to package Hardaway and McGee and maybe some picks. Again, you guys know how I feel about picks. I don't think picks are worth that much if they're not top 10 or higher, right? In terms of star power, in terms of getting guys who are going to be good right away or guys who are going to be possible all-stars 3 or 4 years down the road, I just don't think those guys really exist outside of the top 10. And if you are able to trade a pick in a package and get a proven commodity in the NBA, I think you should do that 9 times out of 10. That's my opinion. Not everyone agrees. But this isn't like football, right? Football, you have 22 spots you're trying to fill. You need all those picks, right? You're trying to find a lot of value in those picks in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, right? You're trying to draft backups, guys who fit different packages, etc. And in basketball, you are trying to put out the best 5 players on the floor, right? And so I have always been of the belief or the thought process that, getting a proven commodity, getting someone whose talent or is at least a proven NBA player, right, rotation player, is probably more valuable than anything you'll get outside of the top 10 to 15 picks, right, on average. Of course, there's always steals in the draft or guys come out of nowhere or exceed all expectations, but those guys are few and far between. And so I've always been a fan of trading picks, especially if you are a playoff team, a team that's trying to make a move or two to become a contender, and I think that's where the Mavs are, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year. I think that's where they're at. And I think hopefully trading a pick or two with Tim Hardaway Jr. or McGee. I've heard Maxey in a few trade scenarios. I really would hate to see Maxey go. I'd like to see how he comes back after a full offseason and recovering from his injury. Again, I'm a big fan of Maxey. I think guarding that 3, 4, 5 position is nice to have for a big man, a decent defender. I don't think people give him enough credit for that. A good shooter, good to great shooter. So I would like to see him stay, especially for the money we're paying him. I think we're overpaying Tim Hardaway Jr. I would like to see him go, and him being a decent shooter, somewhat of a ball handler. I think there's a team out there who could use him and a guy like McGee. So I would like to see us package them if we can. They've been in tons of trade talks. So I do think probably here in the next week or so, if the Mavs make a move, I do think Hardaway is probably gone with the pick or two. I don't, at this point, trying to fit McGee into our big man rotation, especially with Maxey back, Lively, Powell, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know, unless you just strictly want the depth, right? I just don't know what that looks like for the Mavs. I know we're only paying him $6 million a year, and if he can contribute any kind of way with any sort of 5 or 10 minutes a game, whatever it is, that would be nice. But I'm sure there's teams out there who are hurting for big men now more than we are. So I wouldn't mind moving McGee, and not so much I want to move him. I just don't know what his role would be on this team now, and what that would look like on a night in, night out basis. I just think he's going to get lost in the shuffle, and almost like Bertans, if you're not going to use it, then lose it. Trade him and Hardaway in a pick or two, even if you're only getting a guy slightly better than both of them, right? That I think that's worth it. People have been kind of mentioning PJ Washington, Allen would be nice. Those are the two guys now I'm looking at. From what I understand, again, I'm not a salary cap expert. I don't think the Hornets are very keen on re-signing Washington. And I'm hoping, Nico Harrison's been on fire. All right. He's definitely rolling the dice right now. He's definitely shooting from the hip in terms of, taking a shot. Not that he's shooting without any sort of good thought or logic behind it. But he's definitely on the offensive right now to make some moves and get some guys. And so I look for Nico Harrison to hopefully pull off a little more magic here, and maybe get PJ. Who knows? I don't think the Hornets are going to re-sign PJ. I think they would have to do like $20 million a year or something like that. And whether it be their contract situation or what have you, from what I understand, the Hornets are not going to keep him around next year. And, Grant coming here, Luka and Kyrie, again, the Kyrie trade will pay off big time exponentially in terms of turning Dallas into a free agent spot, a place where people want to go play, right? If Kyrie can show playing with Luka as possible, two ball-dominant guys, and they can get it going, people are going to want to come here and play, and it's going to be fun, and there's going to be a lot of talent on this team to become a contender. I think we're close. I literally think one more move, especially someone like Allen or PJ Washington, I think top 4 in the West is more than possible for the Mavs. I think, last year was a big letdown, and hopefully it's kind of coming back, though. But, yeah, PJ and Allen would be nice. I was right about Grant. I really had a good suspicion we were going to get Grant. I thought he was a great fit. Once we got Grant, I was a little sour on the fact that we offered Matisse Thybulle. I don't know if that's all part of the madman logic here from Nico Harrison, if he knew what he was doing. Or if he knew that the Blazers were probably going to, match the offer. And so, therefore, by us extending an offer to Matisse Thybulle, it was kind of a bluff in a way. I don't know. I don't know if we were – obviously we had to be somewhat serious about getting him. But if you're going to pay Grant Williams $14.5 million a year over 4 years, I don't see why you would give Thybulle $11 million a year, I guess, in my opinion. I think maybe the Mavs had other plans for him, a sign-and trade or something. Who knows? I don't know. But a little bit of the Matisse Thybulle contract offer, the offer sheet, felt a little bit like bait to me. I don't know. That's just my gut feeling that there was something else at play with that. So I don't have anything to back that up. That's just my gut feeling. I guess I just don't see. It just didn't feel right, I guess, after getting Grant Williams. And, I think they were almost positive they were going to go try and get Grant in a way. Grant and Luka, I believe, have the same agent. And Grant has many times, I think he's on record saying if he could start a team right now, he'd pick Luka. So I kind of thought that was in the works a little bit. And the Matisse Thybulle, I don't know. Maybe Nico's just trying to put as many assets together and see what he can do. He's not really worried about what happens on the back end. He just knows value when he sees it, and he's going to try and get things together and move them, package them, do something, right? Shake it up. But again, I think the defense has been addressed a little bit with Grant Williams. Not that Thybulle would have been a bad addition. I think we might have overpaid him for how many minutes he would have actually played, kind of thing. So I'm hoping we get, I think Washington, I guess something about me just says Washington's not possible. He seems like a little bit out of reach, financial wise or money wise. But if we can move Tim Hardaway in a pick or two, I mean, it's not impossible. And getting Washington would be huge. I think that would be massive for the Mavs, as well as Allen. I think both of those guys, getting either one of them, I think if getting either one of them happens in the next week or two, or whichever way, the sky's the limit, really. Luka comes in shape. These guys can gel and figure it out. My big worry is still Jason Kidd. Can he make it all fit? I'm not too confident in that, but hopefully the players are good enough to sort of get over that hump and figure it out on their own, even if he's not good enough to do so. But this Grant Williams signing, I've kind of said it in other videos. The Mavs are not the best at free agency. They're just not. Historically, they have not been good at it. They have not really been that good at trades. I think where they've made their money is in the draft. I mean, essentially, Dirk and Luka, right? And maybe a few other players you could mention. Getting Finley and Nash in trades, I guess, were good. But again, we got Nash by trading a pick. Again, in the draft is where the Mavs have always done their damage and have always made moves, right? And good moves. And in free agency, it just seems like the Mavs, again, whether it's just the salaries aren't right, we haven't constructed a roster good enough to allow us flexibility to make a move, or guys just don't want to come here. Like the whole DeAndre Jordan situation was weird. When that all happened, essentially his teammates were forcing him to stay, essentially. The Mavs in free agency have just whiffed a lot. And 2011 is a bit of an anomaly. They kind of got these veteran guys who kind of didn't have a home to go to, and the Mavs kind of took them in, and it worked, right? It worked. I can't blame them for that. But in terms of getting kind of good young talent in the free agency and in the market, the Mavs historically have just not been that good, and this has been a very refreshing offseason for the Mavs. I mean, I can't remember the last time I felt this much optimism. I know when we drafted Luka, that felt good. But again, you knew you were even as good as Luka turned out to be, and he's more than what we thought he would be for the most part. Maybe some people obviously thought he'd be this good, but he's definitely exceeded most expectations. And, but no player can do it by himself. And you knew that even if Luka was as good as he is, we're still going to have to make a move or two, right? And that's where the doubt creeps in. Can we actually make another move or two? And this offseason's been great. It's been so refreshing. And the key word is value. It is crazy to me that it's not even so much that we have overspent to go get a guy, right, to sort of pick someone up in free agency to make a difference. But I feel like we're getting guys at good prices, right? Even if we got Matisse Thybulle, 11 mil a year is not too bad, right? I mean, if you can sit on Davis Bertans at $16 million a year, then getting this guy for 14 and a half, who I think is better than Bertans, is better than Bullock, who we traded for him. It feels good. This is amazing. I don't know if Nico Harrison's got the pull that we kind of hoped he would, or what's going on really, but I think getting Kyrie Irving in the trade had a lot to do with this. Knowing that there are two stars on the team I think draws a lot of people in. And I think that was always the problem with Dirk. A lot of times is, hey, Dirk's not a talker. He's not a recruiter. He's not one of those guys, right? And he was always kind of just the guy, and we could never find that second guy for him. Even when they won, there really was no second bona fide all-star or anything next to him. I think having two all-stars like Kyrie and Luka on a team just make it so much more enticing for guys to come. And they realize that's less work for me to do. The ceiling is higher. I can play my role. I don't have to necessarily, I can get some of the glory and not a lot of the blame. I think a lot of those kind of thoughts set in. And I think, again, the Kyrie, I'm still knocking on wood, but I think the Kyrie signing could be a huge turning point in the short and long run for us, and that's just my opinion. A lot of people I think are still questionable on him, but I think those, I'm not gonna say those days are behind us. Kyrie is who he is, but I don't think it's gonna affect us on the court like it has in the past. So that's just my video. Getting Grant's amazing. I hope we get Allen or PJ Washington. I'd be through the roof, right? I'm already on a high level right now in terms of what the Mavericks have done. Getting Grant, I made that video, my last video about the Mavs off season. I said there was a good chance we get Grant. I hope we would get Grant. Grant was the guy I wanted. We got him. I couldn't be happier with this off season. And if we can get one more piece, one more key, and even move McGee, who it's not that I don't like McGee. I just don't know how he's going to fit. After seeing last year, I just thought we kind of just wasted away in a way. So, and I didn't really like that. If you're going to go and get a guy to address your interior defense and your rim protection and rebounding, and then you don't ever play him, I understand he was hurt a little bit, and then you don't even play him, that move kind of boggles my mind a little bit. So I don't know what his future looks like in Dallas. And if that's what they're going to do with him, right? If they're not going to let him play 10-plus minutes a game, then move him. Then I guess, yeah, go ahead and move him, right? I would like to see him play. I still think he could be viable. I'm not sure. I thought maybe he could be a little bit of a mismatch in certain situations, but I just don't think in today's league, I just don't think there's any way we could do that. But I still think he could be serviceable down low, getting boards, rim protection, etc. He obviously can catch lobs, but the way they used him just kind of frustrated me. It kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. I didn't like it. I guess and again, this comes back to that value in free agency, right? The Mavs go out and get McGee for a specific need, a specific thing, and then they don't use him. And it's like, well, what are we doing here, right? And it feels like this offseason's been a total 180. I feel, again, I said this in the last video, I feel like there is a vision. The front office is on the same page. There are ideas being tossed around, and we're going with one goal, and everyone is on the same page, and they're thinking the same. I can't explain it, right? I can't tell you exactly what. Obviously, Nico Harrison is the spearhead of it, and he's spearheading it. But the feeling right now in terms of the way the Mavs are making moves and what this roster was at the end of last year to now it's night and day. And I really can't explain it other than Nico Harrison and Kyrie. Just making the Mavericks a destination, and for that I thank them. And I'm that's. If anything, right, that is why the future is so bright, right? That hopefully now we can get guys who want to come here. That's when the value comes in. Guys might sign for a little less. You might be able to get a guy or two, like Powell. Powell's a good example, right? If this is a destination and people want to stay here, a guy like Powell, who is definitely serviceable, he's going to play minutes. He's maybe not start, but he's going to play significant minutes. And if someone gets injured, he's definitely ready to step up and fill that void. That's crucial, right? We can now not worry about the center position so much if a guy like that's going to sign for $4 million a year. and the Rockets were going to pay him millions more. I'm not sure exactly what the rumor was on what they were going to sign, but apparently he turned down a not insignificant amount of money to stay here. That adds up, right? That adds up in terms of being able to construct a championship roster. That's really, Nico and Kyrie turning it into a destination leads to value, leads to a better constructed roster. And the way our roster was constructed last year to now, it's a 180. It's a total 180, and it's not just even on paper. It is the feeling in the air, right? That thing you can't really touch or describe, but it's an intangible that you know you need, right? And I mean, getting Grant, that's what it's all about. Proof is in the pudding. So hopefully in the next week or two, I'll be able to make another video on us signing, and I really hope PJ Washington. I feel like I'm getting my hopes way too high. But the bottom line is I don't think the Hornets are going to keep him. They're not. From what I understand, it just doesn't fit the contract and the salary and what they can do. And maybe he's asking for a little too much. I don't know. But if the Mavs are willing to make a move and trade a couple players and some picks for him, they should do it. Fuck the picks. Pardon my language. Forget the picks. Forget, Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good player, right? He can be great in spots at times, sometimes. Obviously I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but he's a good player. He's definitely a rotational, if not starting, player in the NBA, I would think, right? At least rotational, right? But we're not trying to. I think we're paying him like 16, 18 million a year or something. That's way too much, right? Move him, move McGee, trade some picks. Let's do this, right? And I think that's what Nico Harrison's probably thinking too. So that's my video. I really hope this is a sign of things to come for the Mavs in the offseason and free agency. I think it is. I'm pretty confident it is. And I think, I hated to see the Nelsons go and all that. But Nico has crushed it. Nico's crushed it. You have to give credit where it's due. I said that last video, and it is what it is. And if Nico's going to keep doing this and turning us into a destination, then he gets all the credit, man. All the credit in the world to him. And bringing Kyrie in was his doing too. So even as much as I want to credit Kyrie, I mean, he's the guy who brought Kyrie in as well. So this is amazing. I'm stoked, excited, all the buzzwords, right? And I think we still have a move or two to go. That's the crazy part. As good as we feel right now, as Mavs Nation, we still have another move or two to go. And we might have to wait till the beginning of the season or something like that. But I do feel another move coming on, whether that's Washington or Allen or something else. There is another move coming. I almost guarantee it. So that's my video for now. I'll see you all in the next one.